Let's talk kingdom. He's the one you can lean on. He don't change, he stays the same. Won't find a better reason, no. So come tap in, just listen. And bring a friend, let's spread this vision. Let's talk kingdom. He's the one you can lean on. He don't change, he stays the same. Won't find a better reason, no. So come tap in, just listen. And bring a friend, let's spread this vision.
And shalom aleichem to each and every one of you. So glad to have you with us today. We speak Shemek Hag Yam Ha Bikkurim. It is the day and the time that we have come together according to the word of Elohim, and we're going to explain that to you in just a few moments. Those of you who are viewing with us on the live streams, we want you to please come in, like the actual page that you're on, subscribe to your YouTube channel that's there as well, as we go live with this in just a moment. Just a bit of housekeeping very quickly and expeditiously. We are in a season. This is a giving actual service. So you understand we're giving our time, we're giving, presenting our bodies, and we're not coming before him empty, according to the writ and Leviticus 23. Those things have been set forth. You are in a time of first fruits. It is very clear first fruits is what he has called for. One lamb, fine flour, fine oil, fine wine. It is $4.50 USD. Make your time to get it straight. Those of you who are viewing in because you know what this is, we're not here as a, we're not begging or pleading. This is just compliance of our lifestyles. And there is no obligation. It's up to you to honor Elohim with what you should do and trying to get that done. You'll read at the bottom of the screen. You'll be able to tell that you can contribute your, make your contribution and your compliance to vwministries.com. That is at the bottom of the screen. And then there are other apps that are used based on where we've been. If you Zelle, you can Zelle us at vwj888@gmail.com. vwj888@gmail.com. That's your Zelle as well for this space and place. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. We welcome you to, again, the broadcast, hoping that Yahweh will bless you in our readings and our teachings today thus far. All right. Well, let's get started in a word of prayer. Yahweh, we do adore, magnify, exalt, and extol you for who you are and why you are. We thank you for the opportunity to be here in the West Coast and the Central and the Mountain time zones for these times of service and all that is required of us. We ask you to be with us, to be in us, to be through us, and toward us, literally for your name's sake, absolutely for your praise. We ask now that your grace would rest with and on us. Put us in a position in a time that we would be where you would need us to be. Your word tells us to be here today. Your word tells us to come before you not empty. Your word tells us to present our bodies a living sacrifice unto you, holy, meaning redeemed by your blood, and acceptable, meaning washed by your word, which is our reasonable service, meaning it's a command that you made. We're here, we're present, and we do come not empty-handed. We ask you today to accept our render, our barak of you, and we pray you barak us as we honor your word. In the mighty and in the matchless name of Yeshua HaMashiach. You alone are holy, you alone are righteous, and you alone are our Elohim. We speak your will, we speak only your word today. Grace us now in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach as we pray and we say, Amen. So So to many of you who have come back for the concluding service of the concluding message for the message today of Chag Bikkurim, and you want to make sure that you're in that space and place that you need to be regarding his will and regarding his way, I want you all to prepare your hearts with me to be in the state of compliance. The Bible declares what the purpose of this is. Let us move expeditiously into that. We thank those of you from the UK, from Africa, from Vietnam, from China, from Uganda, from Ghana, from South Africa, for your patience, not your patience, but your compliance to his instruction. This is the day Yahweh just wants you to be in his word. And when you're in his word, reading his word, coming from the understandings of him, that's how he empowers and blesses you. Let us prepare our hearts to enter in for the West Coast, the last coast of the regions that we service and their time zones to come into the Sabbath. We welcome you. We speak Shabbat Shalom over you. We speak Shemek Hag Yam Ha Bikkurim, and we're hoping that you are prepared and ready to get into the word as only Elohim can do. Remember, make it your business. Start going now to get your contributions in. You know what time it is. Before we blow this shofar, we're going to enter the word, but go and get your contributions. Your compliance is ready and prepared in that space that you need to be in. Go to vwministries.com. You'll see it scrolling at the bottom of the screen as well. And then you can also Zell us at VWJ888 at Gmail. Again, VWJ888 at Gmail. Amen. So let's get into what the word of Elohim would have us to know, to say, and to do. The Bible declares very clearly and distinctively that he has given us in Leviticus chapter 23, Yahweh had spoken unto the children of Israel, and he said to them very clearly what he wanted to be done. He spoke to them these words. Yahweh said unto the children of Israel, concerning my feasts, you shall proclaim them to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts. We go down to verse 4. These are the feasts of Yahweh, the holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons. And the 14th day of the month shall be Yahweh's Pesach. We did that 2 days ago. The 15th day of that month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Hakat Matzat. We did that yesterday. And now you have entered into the third day, which is the 16th of Nisan. And that is where verse 9 picks up. Speak to the children of Israel and say unto them, when you come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest. He shall wave that sheaf before Yahweh to be accepted for you on the morrow after the Sabbath. That's when the priest shall wave it. You shall offer that day, when you wave the sheaf of a he lamb without blemish, the first year, for a burnt offering unto Yahweh. The meat offering thereof shall be 2/10 deals of fine flour mingled with oil, an offering made by fire unto Yahweh for a sweet savor. And the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, the fourth part of an hin. You shall not eat any bread, nor parched corn, nor green ears until the selfsame day that you've brought an offering unto Yahweh. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations and in all your dwellings. You shall count unto you the morrow after the Sabbath, for the day that you offer and have brought the sheaf of the wave offering. You're going to count 7 Sabbaths until they be completed. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days, and you shall offer a new meat offering unto Yahweh. All right. So Zion, we are preparing our hearts now to enter in as we know to be, and make the introduction and the assembling and the calling of his people together. Let us prepare ourselves. We have rung the alarm. We've sounded the we have blown the shofar. We have sounded the alarm. We have blown the trumpets in Zion to alert you that the day of Yom Bikkurim is upon us. It is the tradition and the custom of the faith and the instruction of the Torah to sound the alarm, alert the people, gather and assemble them together at the tabernacle for the time of rendering their bodies, rendering their offering of their hands, and rendering their hearts to the written word of Elohim to be read in this 24-hour period of time. So for the next 24 hours, we will be coming on broadcast with you, popping in during the course of the day to keep you focused as per the instructions on the word and the word only. So we speak, and I ask you, you should be saying it and typing it, Shemek Chag Yam Ha Bikkurim. That's right, Shemek. You could even say Shemek Chag Bikkurim. That's fine. You're still getting the point across, and we know what you mean. Shemek means happy celebration. Yam means the day of Bikkurim, first fruits. Feast is the word Hag, so Shemek Hag Ha Bikkurim, Shemek Yam Ha Bikkurim works either way. Yahweh is you're delighting in him, and that's what he wants of his people. So let's get started so we can move quickly into a lot of information that we have and what Yahweh would for us to know. Please make it your business that before this broadcast is over, get your digitized receipts to us by going to vwjministries.com, getting your contribution secure so they can send us the receipt, and then we can do our wave offering. Now, our wave offering, because of the hour that we're in, will not be done until tomorrow. However, we're going to be making sure you get it in. Don't let us wait to the last minute to have to print it down, because tomorrow at before 7:30, we're going to be doing the broadcast to make sure everybody is still in the time of Yom Bikkurim. All right. So we're going to do a wave offering tomorrow between 3 and 6. And I want to make sure that everybody is there when we wave the offering per the instructions you're going to read right now. Let's give you a little bit of history so you know where we're going. Now, one last piece of housekeeping. You are now going to begin, once this feast day is over, a day of counting of the Omers. 7 Sabbaths plus 1 day will be the next feast season that the church erroneously called Pentecost, but we now know and understand clearly is in fact the times of the feast of Shavuot. And these are the things that we need to know and understand. So one of the things that we want to make sure you guys get is this: in this day, in this time, in this place, the feast of Pesach is a 8-day process. There is the first day of Pesach itself. There is then, in fact, the next day of unleavened bread, the 15th. So the 14th is the death, and they bury him. So the death, the burial. The 15th is a part of the burial. The 16th is he's still in the grave, so he's buried. And then in the 16th, 3 days in the burial state, in the ground, in that 16th day, he resurrects. Okay, so this is what people have to understand about him saying 3 days, and then he'll raise that temple. So he went into the tomb on the 14th. He was in there on the 15th. He was also in there on the 16th. And by virtue of that, this put him in the position of what he needed to know and understand as fulfilling the prophecies that are there for that time and space. So here's what you want to catch when we talk about this area. This is the last day of that 3-day process. And this is why he's known as the first fruits, because he resurrects on that day. This is the dynamic piece. Let's get into some passages. I'm going to take you through the writ. I have something I want you to understand about this day. There is no ooey gooey feeling. There is no emotional feeling about this day. It's a simple day of compliance. We must comply with Elohim in order for him to supply for us. The compliance produces Elohim's supply. So when you comply, Elohim will supply. All right, let's get into this. I'm going to need a reader from the Clubhouse group, if you don't mind, to work with me and pay attention to my voice. So if I can get a reader to volunteer from our moderators, I'd greatly appreciate it. Please speak up loud with your outside voice. Let me know you're willing to read for me at the time I need it. No problem. I got it. Volunteers, thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Veronica, we're not going to overwork you. Brother Ben, we're going to go ahead and let you have that. Go to John chapter 15, Brother Ben, and be prepared when I call you. Don't be away from the phone. Be prepared. It'll be 20 minutes or so from now, but have that passage ready to go when I need it read, and read it slow enough to hear me when I stop you. Pay attention to my voice as we read. Thank you very much, Brother Ben. Thank you, Veronica, for assisting as well. So the first part and the final part of Pesach is spoken of as the feast days of the sheaf of first fruits. So the only specific scripture that deals with the feast days is Leviticus chapter 23, the feast day with this particular feast day is Leviticus 23, 9 through 14. Now we're going to read that for you right now so you understand a few things about this. So let's go back to Leviticus 23, verses 9 through 14. We're going to read it one more time. Ready? Here we go. Verse number 9, and it tells us this. If you're reading on the screen, you'll catch this. He says, and Yahweh spake unto Moshe and told them, speak to the children of Israel, when you come into the land which I will give you to reap the harvest thereof, you will bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priests. You shall wave the sheaf before Yahweh to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Shabbat, the priest shall wave it. You shall offer that day when you wave the sheaf a he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto Yahweh your Elohim. And the meat offering thereof shall be a 2/10 deals of fine flour mingled with oil. It'll be an offering made by fire unto Yahweh for a sweet savor. It'll be a drink offering as well thereof shall be of wine, the fourth part of a hin. Let's go back now and look at this process so you understand this. Verse number 10, you're going to bring your sheaf unto the priest. You're going to wave with that sheaf, as Yahweh has stated and suggested. You're going to wave a lamb. That is what Yahweh would for you to do on that day. So that lamb is, of course, what you will wave with the sheaf. The lamb is a monetary issue. Do not be confused. It is that. $330 USD is what you're looking at. That's the cost of an actual lamb, fitting the specifics of the actual instructions. And this is something we get from the actual butchers across the globe. Actually, 3 of them from different parts of the globe. And this is the going rate, actually last year's rate for a lamb of these specificities under 12 months, a male without blemish. And that is what that comes at. So when he gives that instruction for the writ, he tells you, you're going to wave it. Verse 11, you're going to wave the sheaf to be accepted for you on the morrow after the Sabbath. On verse 12, you shall offer that day when you wave the sheaf a lamb. You just realize that. That lamb will also be, please pay attention, that lamb will be without blemish of the first year. Verse 13, it'll be, you're also going to bring a meat offering. It will be a 2/10 deals of fine flour mingled with oil, an offering made by fire unto Yahweh for a sweet savor. The drink offering thereof will be of wine, fourth part of a hin. Now that is where we come to conclude that this is what Yahweh wants in whole and totality. So Chag Bikkurim is in fact the lamb, fine flour, fine oil, fine wine. That equals that USD at 120. And then you had the first fruit combined offering at 450 total per your income streams. That is the end result at the bottom. The first fruit offerings is 450 USD. Okay, now here is what the instructions are. You shall eat neither bread nor parched corn nor green ears until the selfsame day that you have brought an offering unto Yahweh your Elohim, until you have brought an offering unto Yahweh your Elohim. And then once you've done the offering, then you can eat that. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations and in all of your dwellings. Now, the New Testament Bible also, or the passages in the New Testament also put us in a position where we understand what Yahweh wants of us and wants for us in this process. And Paul starts to break some things down in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 that we need to pay attention to, because while the gospel shows the fulfillment of this particular feast being as the resurrection of our Savior Messiah, Paul does a summary statement in Corinthians in the New Testament. And this I read because people don't think that the Bible talks about this feast in the New Testament, nor do they think that it explains what this feast is in the New Testament. But Paul does a wonderful job of making it simple. And most importantly, he makes it beautifully expressed and properly interpreted. Let's look at what Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse number 20. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse number 20, I'm going to go ahead and give you from verse number 16, just to make sure we have it in context. Verse 16 says, for if the dead rise not, then is not Messiah raised. Verse 17, if Messiah be not raised, your faith is vain. Somebody tell me, did Messiah rise from the dead? Yes, he did. All right, good. Give me some quick answers when I call from quick answers. Verse 17. And if Messiah be raised, your faith is vain. If he's not been raised, your faith is vain. My faith ain't vain because he rose. You are yet in your sins if he did not rise. Verse 18. Then they also which are asleep in Messiah, well, they're going to perish. But we know Messiah raised, right? Verse 19 says, if in this life only we have hope in Messiah, we are all men most miserable. But now is Messiah risen from the dead. He has become, here it is, he has become, here it is, the first fruits of them that slept. Verse 21 says, for since by man came death, by man came also the resurrection of that death. For in Adam all died, even so in Messiah shall all be made alive. Verse 22, but every man in his own order, for Messiah is the first fruits. Afterwards, they that are Messiahs at his coming. Then comes the end, when he shall have delivered up the kingdom of Elohim, even the Father, when we shall have put down all rule and all authority and all power. For he must reign till he hath put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. For he hath put all things under his feet. But then he says, all things are under him. It is manifest that he is accepted, which did put all things under him. Now, just as a quick note to many of you who may be aware of what we talked about in Pesach, that Messiah told the disciples, I will not eat this meal again with you, drink this drink of the vine with you again until I do it in my Father's kingdom. Paul here is explaining eschatology, and he's telling us that Messiah will reign in Jerusalem. And when he does, that will look like the first it will look like the resurrection. It will look like, the epitome of the first fruits. Messiah is the first fruits, and then everything after him is his sheaves. Let's talk about that even now. So the day of the sheaf of first fruits is remarkable. It is a prophetic type of the resurrection of the Messiah, his ascension to heaven, to the Father, and also it is symbolic of the coming resurrection of all the saints of all the ages. Now, when Israel eventually entered into the promised land, they were commanded to keep the feast day in that way at that time. It involved the harvest period under Pesach and under Pentecost. Now, I don't believe in Pentecost, you know that, but Pentecost is what the actual church calls it because of the Greek involvement and what have you. But Pentecost should have never been the name, though Penta means 50. 50 deals with, as it were, the days from here on. We count 7 Sabbaths, and one day after that will be 7 times 7 is 49, plus one day makes it 50. So that's a part of why they call it Pentecost festival, and then the name stuck, but it should have always been known as Shavuot because that's when he gave the Torah. Now let's look at what that means. There are 2 times you give first fruits. You give first fruits by these instructions in Shavuot, Pesach, which you're in right now, and in 50 days in Shavuot, i.e. Pentecost. So there's no other time to give first fruits. You don't give it in January. I don't care what mega ministry tells you to do that. I don't care what ministry ever tells you to do that. The Torah does not honor the Gregorian calendar. Your New Year's Day and all that New Year's stuff that gets done on New Year's Eve in the Christian church who says they are teaching Messiah, that stuff does not get honored by the Torah. The Torah does not ignite or does not even invent any of that that goes on the Gregorian calendar. There's no acknowledgement of any Gregorian calendar. Why? Because when this was written, there was no Gregorian calendar. It was the Torah calendar. Then the Gregorian, i.e. the Julian, before then and before that, those, they superimpose themselves on society, and now you're stuck with the Gregorian, but you are still obligated to understand the schedules and the times that Yahweh put. You are now in the day our Savior resurrected. It did not happen on some Sunday last month. Just for the record. Now, when Israel entered into the promised land, it involved them keeping the harvest as Yahweh had instructed them. They couldn't keep it in the wilderness because they didn't have a place, because they were nomadic. They were wandering. They were, however, being fed from heaven with manna. Now, the interesting thing here about this is that they were in the wilderness exactly 40 years. It didn't even hit me until last year that they were in the wilderness for 40 years to the month. They crossed over into Jordan in the month of Nisan, the 40th year after they left Egypt, in the month of Nisan. Now, when you understand what he means here, they couldn't keep the feast they couldn't keep that particular feast, the feast that he had ordered, because you had to come into the promised land. They don't get into the promised land until 40 years later, so they couldn't do that feast in the wilderness. Let's go talk to Joshua about what this looked like. It was not a place of harvest because they were feeding, and they couldn't do it in the wilderness, and Yahweh was feeding them all 40 years with manna. Did y'all know that all 40 years Yahweh was literally feeding them manna from heaven? So that meant every day they went out and they gathered manna according to the actual instructions for 40 years. We said, well, we know that he fed them with manna, but many of y'all didn't know he did it for the entire 40 years. We think it was just at one time when they cried, give us bread, give us bread. No, he fed them every day, 40 years manna. Let's talk about that. Joshua chapter 5. Come on. This has got everything to do with your first fruit, so don't think it's disconnected. Joshua chapter number 5. Pulling my Bible up so you can read it. For those of you who should have your Bibles because you're in the time of feast, let's pay attention. We're going to go over to verse number 10, but I want to start around verse number 6. Listen to what it says. Joshua chapter 5, verse 6. We're going to read down to verse 10. I hope you guys are learning and in being embracing this word as he brings it forward for us all. Here's your Bible. Look at it on the screen. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness till all the people that were men of war who came out of Egypt died. That's what it means, consumed. Because they obeyed not the voice of Yahweh, unto whom Yahweh swore he would not show them the land, which Yahweh swore to their fathers that he would give them the land that flowed with milk and honey. Verse 7, their children, who he raised up in their stead, Joshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised. Why? Because they had not been circumcised while they were in the wilderness. So that's what that means when it says, because they had not circumcised them by the way of the wilderness. Verse 8, it came to pass when they had done circumcising all the people that they abode in their places in the camp till they were whole. Significant point for you to learn from this as we pull this up, and many of you are going to be educated by this and you won't think it necessary to the message, but I promise you it's very significant. When in fact you read in chapter 5 here in verse number 7, the children who Yahweh raised, here's the catch. Yahweh literally he literally gave them an instruction. When Israel left Egypt, Egypt was in a bad state. Israel was now free. Yahweh gave them instructions. He said, send 12 spies to go and look at the promised land that I'm waiting to give you guys, and then come back and tell the people about it. Instead, 10 of those spies came back and told a bad report. They were scared out of their wits. Oh, we can't do it. No way in the world. This is crazy. We should die in Egypt. No. So Yahweh was upset with them. So here's the catch. Everybody that came out of Egypt on that night of Nisan, anyone over 20 perished in the wilderness before they got to the promised land 40 years later. Yahweh did that. Why? Because the ones who had come out over 20 years old, they panicked. They didn't think it could be happening. So Yahweh took 40 years to raise up children to replace those he brought out. And when they died off, until they got there, he killed off all men of war. So these children were being raised in the wilderness. And in that, those who came out initially were circumcised. When they came out, they were circumcised. However, this is important, those who were born in the wilderness were not, because they were nomadic. So once they got to the shores of Gilgal, they got to the bank, then Joshua circumcised all of them that were born in the wilderness so that they can cross over into the promised land properly. Now, here's how we know they were in the wilderness for 40 years to the month, because it took them several days to heal from the procedure of a circumcision. Usually 2 to 3 days it takes for that man to get his strength back up to be some semblance of himself. And then it takes an additional 7 days for him to start really feeling more like himself, and then they can move on. So here is why this is important to read, so you guys can understand the timing and the breadcrumbs that Yahweh gave you for his details. Look at this passage, verse 7. Their children whom they raised up in their stead, Joshua circumcised. Verse 8, it came to pass that when they had done circumcising all the people, that they abode in their places in that camp till they were whole. Yahweh spoke to Moshe. He said, this day, I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from off of you. Wherefore the name of the place is called Gilgal to this day. What did Yahweh mean when he says, I've rolled the reproach of Egypt back off of you this day? Here is what it meant. When he circumcised all those that were born in the wilderness, everybody who came out of Egypt under 20 was dead. The reproach of the Egyptian mindset was now left in the wilderness, dead. His cutting the foreskin of these children moving on, having replaced those that died 20 and over 40 years ago, now the reproach of Egypt is gone. Those that were 20 and under, they had the ambition. They wanted to see Yahweh's promises, and they were young enough to train. All right. Now look closely at this as we continue to read the passage. Verse number 9. He says, Joshua, I've rolled back the reproach wherewith the name of this place is called Gilgal to this day. Verse 10, the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal, and then they kept the feast of Pesach on the 14th day of the month at even in the plains of Jericho. And they did eat the old corn of that land on the morrow after Pesach, unleavened cakes, parched corn in the same day. And the manna, watch this, and then the manna ceased on the morrow. So once they came into the promised land, Yahweh stopped the manna from coming that day. Y'all know what day that was, y'all? Today. Nobody gonna say that's awesome? I'm gonna say that's awesome. So now let's look further at these details he gave us. Verse 12. So the manna ceased on the morrow after the day that they had eaten the old corn of that land. Neither had the children of Israel manna any more. But they did eat of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. Woo-hoo! So they've entered into the promised land. See, once Yahweh, what you got to understand is when you get saved, Yahweh wants to keep you. He wants to provide for you. He wants to do all these wonderful things for you, but he also wants you to be able to provide for yourself. So when they came into the promise he gave into Abraham, he stopped feeding them supernaturally from heaven. But what he would do is turn and transfer that supernatural blessing onto the harvests that he now has for them. He prepared them houses they didn't build. He gave them groves they did not plant. He gave them vineyards they did not sow. All of this is in the land of Canaan. This is why first fruits is so important. Now, when you get there, I'll come back to that in just a few moments. The custom was that when they went into the promised land, they were to bring the sheaf of the first fruits. So the custom was, in order for that to happen, they carried it out in this manner: standing in the ripe harvest of barley or wheat, would soon be reaped. Whenever that would be getting to be reaped, they came into the land. There's already houses. Yahweh has driven the people out. Israel's coming in to occupy all the region that they're occupying. And when the harvest, whatever was there, was beginning, so if you had wheat, if you had barley, if you had figs, if you had dates, if you had olives, if you had kumquats, if you had livestock, those harvests, you grabbed a sheaf to honor Yahweh with. Now watch. So they would take one sheaf and bring it unto the priest. Now, each harvest is an income stream. Somebody say it's an income stream.
It's an income stream.
So each harvest is an income stream. So the person would grab a sheaf of that harvest issue. He'd take that lone sheaf, which was called the sheaf of first fruits, bring it to the priest along with the prescribed offering. Who knows what the prescribed offering is? I'm going to help you cheat. A lamb, mix fine flour with fine oil, and another offering of fine wine. That is what you're going to be waving and offering before Yahweh when you get to the priest. So now watch this. They would bring that sheaf of the first fruits. The priest would then take that one sheaf, wave it before Yahweh in Yahweh's house. This was to be done the morrow after the 15th Sabbath, and certain prescribed offerings were also to be presented along with this sheaf. Y'all remember the offering, right? Boom, there it is. One lamb, oil, flour, wine. That's what the offering was. So none could eat bread or roasted grains until they brought this offering to Yahweh on that particular day. All right. So it may be asked, how was this understood? What was the symbolic truths and significances of this simple yet beautiful ceremony? Well, typically you must understand that to appreciate the day of first fruits and the sheaf, you have to follow the writ. So we go now to 23 of Leviticus. Leviticus chapter 23. Leviticus chapter 23, very important passage. I want you to see this. Again, you've read it 100 times if you've been with me at least. So you're going to read it another 100 times before I die, because I'm never leaving this process. It is the prosperity plan of Yahweh in all your dwellings. So a sheaf in the scriptures is generally used to typify persons or a person. Now, in 23:10, speak to the children of Israel when you come into the land. So here he's telling them what to do before they get to what we read in Joshua 10, Joshua 5. Before you get to the land, I'm going to give you, you're going to reap your harvest there. Then you bring me a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest and bring it to the priest. So when we talk about the sheaves, literally personifying or typifying a person or persons, you have the story of Joseph, who in fact was Jacob's son, and he has a dream, and he tells the dream about the 12 sheaves that were bowing, 11 sheaves that bowed down to his one sheaf in that story. So the interpretation was clear, but Usef's dream, as you know, was prophetic. It did show that the 11 brothers, i.e. the sheaves, would bow down to him at an appointed time. This shows that the sheaves were symbolic of a person. Thus, what we have with Messiah being the first fruits, and then he will bring us along after that fact. There's another place in the book of Psalms, chapter 126, that is also a prophetic writing. It is a prophetic psalm, and it speaks to the sower going forth to sow in tears. Then comes back later in the harvest time, bringing his sheaves with him. This first coming is also being able to be applied to Yeshua HaMashiach. He is the Lord of the harvest. He is the first coming. He went forth weeping, bearing precious seed. And in his second coming, i.e. the millennial reign, i.e. the battle of Armageddon, in his second coming, he will be coming back rejoicing in that harvest time, bringing his sheaves with him. And the sheaves in this harvest time are the redeemed souls, which will come to fruition because of the preached gospel and dying in righteousness. Now, a shingle sheaf also represents and is presented to the Yahweh in this feast. It speaks of the person of our Lord Yeshua HaMashiach. He is literally, according to First Chronicles 15, 20, and 23, as we talked about before, he is the first fruits. So you got to understand that part. Now, here is what's significant about the sheaf of the first fruits. Again, Leviticus chapter 23, verses 10 gives us, and I will reread it until I'm almost done reading it. That part right there is he's telling them, when you come into where I'm taking you to, bring me the first of the harvest of everything. Cattle, vegetation, fruit, whatever is being harvested, bring me a first. This is not a tithe. Do not confuse tithing with first fruits. Your first fruits affects your tithe. If you don't give the first fruits of the area you reap your income, then the area you reap your income can be lesser or greater based on your compliance to first fruits, and your tithing will be affected by whether you have a weak flow out of that income stream or a voluminous flow out of that income stream. So first fruits and tithes are not the same, though they affect one another. Let me give you this last piece so we can get home and go out of here. So the sheaf is distinctly called the sheaf of first fruits. So the nation of Israel was very familiar with the concept of first fruits. More importantly, they were familiar with the concept of the firstborn, which is what I've been laboring for years to help us understand, that there is a blessing in the idea of Elohim going into Egypt, killing the firstborn of man and beast. Why? Because they would need that in the promised land. It is a spiritual blessing. It is an endowment that only Elohim can create by the word of Elohim. So here is the catch. That sheaf indicates that Israel was very much aware of the blessing that came with the firstborn, and now we're connecting that to first fruits. All right, watch this closely. The first fruits were always the choicest. They were always the foremost representation. They were also the very first. Whenever you gave first fruits, you gave him the very best of whatever you were harvesting. And that was the preeminent of all that was to follow. Now, first fruits were holy unto Yahweh. Yahweh don't play about his first fruits, y'all. Ben, get ready over there in John 15. Ben, get ready in John 15. When I call you, be able to read quickly, and then listen to my voice to know when to stop. So Yahweh don't play about his first fruits. They are holy unto him. The same truths are also applicable to Elohim about the firstborn of man and or beast. So let me help you with this. The first of both man and beast was always sanctified, and it was to be presented to Yahweh. They were distinct and they were uniquely his. Now, before we talk about John chapter 15, everybody run to Exodus chapter 13, verse 2. I want to help you see this, and then we're going to talk about how Messiah showed us what it looked like. Exodus 13, verse and number 2. I'll start at verse 1 as usual. I want you to get it in context. Exodus chapter number 13, verses 1 and 2. Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, sanctify unto me all the firstborn, whatsoever opens the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and of beast. Somebody say, Yahweh said it's mine. Say it.
Yahweh said it.
All right, make it quick. Make it quick. Say it again. Say, Yahweh said it's mine.
Yahweh said it.
All right. So when we understand this, Yahweh don't play about his first fruits. He told them, when you come into the land I'm going to give you, every creature that cracks the womb of another creature, I want it. That first fruit belongs to me, whether it's of man or whether it's of the beast. Now, let's look at this deeper and more specifically. Go down to verse number 11. I'm going to scroll down to verse 11 so you can see this as well. Watch what he says. Look at verse 11, Exodus 13:11. He says, and it shall be when Yahweh shall bring you into the land of the Canaanites. Now, does anybody know anything weird about Exodus chapter 13, where it places itself? Does anybody know what happened in chapter 12 of Exodus? Oh, I can tell you, that was the meal of Pesach. All the instructions for Pesach, all the instructions for the feast of unleavened bread. And now Exodus 13 deals with the feast of Chag Bikkurim. Mind you, this is Exodus 12, not Joshua 5. So they're just a day out of the feast of Pesach. So he gives them the meal for the Pesach, gets them going on the unleavened bread, and then tells them in the same breath, when I get you to the promised land, I want you to do this. I want you to go in there because people are living there. People are harvesting there. People are building houses there. They're building economy there. They're building schools there. But I'm going to drive them out. You're going to occupy that land. So there will be harvests already there when you get there. But you're going to dedicate it to me by giving me the first sheaf of whatever income stream is on your property. So watch what he says. The firstborn of both man and beast are sanctified unto Yahweh. They are to be presented to Yahweh. Look at verse 11 of the book of Shemot, chapter 13. Pay attention. Look at what he says. Verse 13 says, as is clear, I'll start at verse 11. It shall be when Yahweh shall bring you into the land of the Canaanites, as he sware unto you to give it to you, as he swore unto your fathers to give you this land. Verse 12 says that you shall set apart unto Yahweh, you shall set apart unto Yahweh everything that opens the matrix. That means every firstling that comes out of a beast, which you have, the males shall be Yahweh's. Verse 13. Every firstling of an ass, which is a beast of burden, which helps you with your business, which carries your harvest from the field into the storehouses. Those things are so important. Ass is extremely expensive. It is extremely important because it's a beast of burden. Such things as ox, they carry the burden. Listen to what he says, verse 13. Every firstling. So this is a monetary issue. This is a business building issue, a business sustaining element, an actual workhorse, as it were, in theory. And this ass is important. So every firstling of an ass you shall redeem with a lamb. Now, if you will not redeem it with a lamb, then you shall break its neck. And all the firstborn of man among your children, you shall also redeem. Now, let me give you a real quick education on this so you know what this looks like. What he is telling them is that when you get into the land, when you use your beasts, your oxes, your camels, whatever it is, he uses ass here. He says, when that ass is born, that belongs to me. The first one to crack the mother's womb belongs to me, especially the males. So when the child, when that beast is born in that land, you bring it to me and dedicate it to me. Whether it's lamb, ox, ass, whatever, you bring it to me. So he says, in order for you to use the beast of burden, you have to sacrifice a lamb, and you're telling me that you know I gave it you, and now you're telling me you can be trusted with what I'm going to give you forthwith. Now that first thing belongs to Elohim. He don't play about it. Let me show you. If that ass is born, you don't have a lamb to redeem it with, meaning sacrifice to me that you have a lamb. Okay, I got an ass. Here's a lamb. Yahweh, thank you. Sacrifice is done. Now you can use the lamb. He will make that lamb profitable for you. It will be a beast of burden, a massive way of making your income better. Yahweh will bless it. Somebody shout, the Lord of the harvest. Come on, shout it. Now, here is why that's very important. So if you have this ass and you don't redeem it with the sacrifice of a lamb, first concept is maybe you don't have a lamb. No problem. Just kill that ass, break that ass's neck. It's still mine. You can't use it. Now, maybe you don't want to sacrifice the lamb for that ass. You should break its neck, because Yahweh, like, if I don't get it, nobody gonna get it. It's just as good to be dead to you, because it will be nothing. It won't be worth anything to you. So look at what he says in the passage. I want y'all to catch this. Some of y'all have never heard this way because you've never read this passage the way it needs to be read. He says in this passage, look closely. The firstling of an ass, thou shalt redeem it with a lamb. If you will not redeem it with a lamb, then break its neck. And this also goes for you and your children from your wives. So he was telling them, whenever a man was born, the first male seed of a woman, or the firstborn of a woman, if it were a male seed, you got to offer a lamb once you've had the baby. Now, did you break the neck of the baby if you didn't have a lamb? No. Okay, but that's the way you redeemed a child. If you had to go buy one, you went and bought one. Whatever you needed to do, you got that. So when you had a child and it was a man seed, a zerah, and it was the first, then you sacrificed the lamb. Yahweh, we give you praise. I dedicate this child to you. That's what the protocol is. Now, if you had a lamb and it was the first lamb to crack the matrix, you sacrificed that lamb. Get it? Now, that's the instructions in those days. So watch this next part as we bring this thing to a conclusion. I want you to see this in accuracy as best you can. Look at what he says here in the next passage. He tells them, verse 13, every firstling you redeem it with a lamb. In the 13, it says, and all firstborn of man among your children shall also be redeemed. Verse 14, your children are going to ask, why are we doing this? He says, because by strength of Elohim's hand, we were brought out of Egypt from the house of bondage. And this is what it meant. Verse 15, it comes to pass when Pharaoh would hardly let us go, that Yahweh slew all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, both of the firstborn of man and of beast. Therefore, I sacrifice to Yahweh everything that opens the matrix, being males, but all my firstborn of my children I redeem. And it shall be a token upon your hand and your frontlets between your eyes, for by strength the hand of Yahweh brought you out of the land of Egypt. Now, that was a very important piece to catch and embrace, because it goes even deeper. I want to take you now to Exodus chapter 22-29, because there's many more things that he's been trying to say to us. So later on, while they're walking through the wilderness, he tells them in Exodus chapter 22, verse number 29. So to read it in context, I'll go up just one verse because that's all we need. I'll go to 27. For that is his covering, it is his raiment for his skin, wherein shall he sleep if he doesn't get it? It shall come to pass when he cries unto me, I will hear, for I'm gracious. Verse 28, that thou revile thou shalt not revile the demigods, nor curse the ruler of your people. Verse 29, here's your point. You shall not delay to offer the fruit, the first of the ripe fruits, and your liquors, your firstborn of your sons, shall you give unto me. Verse 30, likewise shall you do with your ox and your sheep. 7 days they can sit with their dams, but on the 8th day you shall give them to me. And if you do this, verse 31, you shall be holy men unto me. Neither shall you eat any flesh that is torn from the beasts of the field. You shall cast that to the dogs. But if y'all paid attention to 29 and 30, you shall delay not to offer the first of your ripe fruits, nor the first of your liquors. Did y'all see that? Did y'all didn't pay attention to that, did y'all? He want the first of the liquors. Okay, I'm gonna move on. And the firstborn of your sons, you shall give them unto me as well. Likewise, you're going to do that with your oxen, beasts of burden, and your sheep, money makers in the market. 7 days, you can let them rest with their moms once they're born. But on the 8th day, just like you have to be circumcised on the 8th day, you're going to sacrifice those items to me, redeem them as I had said. If you do this, you're going to be deemed holy men to me, and I bless my holy men. So now listen to what we talk about when we're reading Elohim's instructions in these feast seasons. So Bikkurim is a very interesting word. Bikkurim means that in the word Bikkurim in the Hebrew, it stands for and literally translates to mean the promise to come. So Bikkurim, when I give him the first fruit, I am telling him that I trust you, and therefore he now becomes obligated to produce the promises he's made. Bikkurim means the promise to come. That's why we celebrate this. But you got to realize this. You must first do the will. After you have done the will of the Father, that which shall come will not tarry. Did y'all forget that part? That's why Bikkurim is known as the promise to come. But the promise ain't coming if you don't comply. He's promised to bless us, but we got to comply. He's promised to bless. Listen to this. He's promised to bless us in the Holy Land. He's promised to bless us in the promised land. But guess what? Getting to the promised land is a blessing. But how we deal with the things in the promised land can become stagnant, it can become stale, and it can become unproductive based on the operator. Now, if Yahweh wants to be the Lord of our harvest and he's already got the promised land working and heathen were running it and it's prospering, and he's telling you now you go over, but the first thing I want from you is every income stream that helps you support your family, I want you to offer me the first fruit. Offer the prescribed offering, wave it before me so I can be the Lord of the harvest. Now, if you go into the promised land I gave you and you're going to do it your way, well, good luck with that. And I don't even believe in luck. So the Hebrew word here for first fruits is Bikkurim. It literally means the promise to come. So when we give our first fruits, we faithfully place our hope in Adonai for the promise that he has made and believing it to come. It is the way of saying, Elohim, you can trust me with any increase you give me. I'm always going to be here to honor you, and I'm going to give you what you require. Now, here is what's important. First fruits is very important to Elohim. Brother Ben, let's prepare John chapter 15. Now, I'm going to put it on the screen for you guys because I want you to see how important John 15 is when it comes to what Yahweh wants to do. This is a very important passage that we don't usually connect to because we haven't been taught to the first fruit process. And Messiah made it very clear. Now, Brother Ben, I'm going to need you to read with your outside voice as he's going to take us to John chapter 15. He's going to begin in verse number 1, and we're going to read slow, Brother Ben, so you can hear my voice to tell you when to stop. All right. Those of you viewing online, here it is again on the Bible for you on the page, John chapter 1, verse number 15, John chapter 15. Let me get it right. John 15, verse 1. All right. Brother Ben, would you read?
I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman.
Read it again.
I am the true vine, and Yahweh is the husbandman.
So what he is saying, who is speaking here? Is Yeshua speaking here?
Adonai.
Yeshua is speaking and Adonai in him is speaking, right? So if he is speaking, he says, I'm the true vine. Then if Adonai is speaking and Yahweh is the Father, because Yahweh is the Father, we know it's Adonai speaking. Adonai is in Yeshua. And he is saying, I am the vine. My Father is the husbandman. He's the farmer. He's the planter. He's the manager. He's the creator. This is his property. I'm the vine. I'm the sustenance for every plant he wants to plant. I'm the vine. So the vine is the word. Somebody come off mic. I want about 5 people to come off mic and say, do it for the vine.
Do it for the vine.
So what he says is, I am the true vine. My Father, Yahweh, is the husbandman. Brother Ben, read verse 2. Go.
Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, he purged it, that it may bring forth more fruit.
So understand then when he says in verse number 1, I am the true vine, me being the vine, you being the branches. So he says every branch in me that bears not fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he purges, he prunes, that it would bring forth more fruit. Let's deal with every branch in me. Somebody say every branch in him. Every branch in him is you and me. He is not talking about just some arbitrary tree and some metaphor about trees that don't bear fruit. He's talking about every branch in me. So that means that people who say they know him, people who say they honor him, people who say they keep his word, people who say Jesus, 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 people who say Yeshua, 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 people who say they're going to keep the feast, people who are going to say they're going to keep the Torah, people who go to church, people who go to Bible study, people who got prayer meeting, people who prayer warriors, every branch in me that's not bearing fruit because it's not obeying my word, and my word is the vine, my vine is the word, and if you're not going to obey the word, you're not going to be a fruitful branch. And every branch in me, in my church, saying it's about me, I'm going to cast it away. He ain't talking about sinners of the world. He's talking about those who was in his church. Every branch in me that bears not fruit because you don't keep my word, he's going to cast it away. Don't that hit different? Somebody got to tell me that hits different. That hits different.
That's different.
Every branch in me, you church folk, you saved people, you high and holy bishop, prophet, apostle, evangelist, pastor, teacher, the word is the vine. Every branch in my word, every branch in I am the true vine, and because of me there are branches. You saved because you believe Yeshua lived, died, and rose again. He is in fact the epitome of that vine. I am the true vine. What's in me is the nectar that supplies each branch. Somebody say, I'm a branch in him. So every branch in him that does not obey him will not produce any fruit. So he's going to cast that branch away. Here is why you got to understand that's important. Remember last night when we were teaching you about unleavened bread, when he says any man who has leaven in his home during this season or does not eat unleavened bread in this season, he will cast them, he will cut them off. He's not going to kill them. He's just going to not let them enjoy the blessings. He's not sending blessings their way. He's not preparing blessings from the promises for them because they're not properly prepared. They're not keeping the word. They are fruitless. You remember when you said in the New Testament church, all judgmental, you shall know them by the fruit that they bear. Well, if you ain't got no fruit because you ain't honoring his word, then he's going to cast you away. Yes, you're in him, but he's looking at what you're producing. And the reason you're not producing in him is because you're not obeying what he says. We live sometimes in a world of being Venetian blinds. You know how you got a window in your house and it's out there near the sun and the sun comes through that window, but you got Venetian blinds. You open it and you shut it when you want it. You gauge how much sun you want in, you gauge how much sun you don't want in. And therefore we operate in him like Venetian blinds. And Yahweh is letting you know just right here in John 15 verse 1, I'm the true vine, my Father Yahweh who started this, who structured this, who created this. He's the husbandman. He's the horticulturalist. He's the agriculturalist. He's the real true shepherd of all shepherds. And we are working in tandem. So when he puts you in me, you should be putting out what I put out. And if there's no fruit on the tree limb that you are, then he's going to cast you away. He's not going to let blessing come to you. He's going to pull you off and let you sit onto the side, and he'll deal with you in the latter day. Those branches, by the way, they get cast into the fire. But verse number 2, Brother Ben, get ready to read now and go. Listen to verse 2 again.
It says,
come on.
Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away, and every branch that beareth fruit, he purged it.
So every branch that bears fruit, he purges it. Why, Ben?
That it may bring forth more fruit.
Say it again straight.
That it may bring forth more fruit.
So the branches in him that don't bear fruit, he casts it away, leaves it over there, lets it sit over there. Oh, you still there, but you ain't bearing fruit. We ain't got time for you. But the branches that do listen to the word, obey his instructions, and begin to produce fruit, you know, the fruit you cried for, the fruit that you brought forth in tears, just like he talked about in Psalms 126. You know, you sowed in tears. Now you're going to reap in joy. That's what he's saying. So that first fruit that comes out of you, you know, the time when you were in him, you were saved, but they got on your nerve and you wanted to snatch their wig off, and Yahweh said, don't do it. That was a painful moment. You had to push that fruit out. And then the time when they talked about you, lied about you, you wanted to get justice and take matters in your own hand. And he said, no, child, just relax. That first fruit, when you finally show that you are really a believer, when you finally show that you are really a part of this tree, when you finally show that you are really grafted into the true olive tree, you are showing that stuff hurt to come out of you, your first fruit, you want to enjoy that. But he's like, no, that don't belong to you. Give me that one. When you give him that one, when he purges that one, verse 2, part B says, the branch that bears fruit, he prunes it for the purpose of making it bring forth much more fruit. First fruits are serious to Yahweh. They belong to him. And that's your process to prosperity, because that's his promise to you supernaturally over whatever you're doing in the earthen realm. And this is where we lost it in Christendom. Why? Because too many fools running around talking about money, lying about offerings, prophesying for profit, and the people who are giving the prophecies never come to pass. And now they don't understand. And whenever you talk about money, whenever you talk about the economy of the kingdom, you are already thinking something weird is happening and you don't want to be a part of it, or you don't prepare for it because somebody else who was jealous, they couldn't do the offerings the way the other fake prophet did it, and they couldn't get it. So they tell you, don't do, don't give, don't be here. Yahweh has always had this plan for the kingdom of Elohim. Any branch in me that bears fruit, he purges it for the purpose of bringing forth more fruit. Now, you think I'm just screaming and yelling at you? I am not. I'm trying to make sure we understand in clarity that Elohim's plan is he wants his first fruits. So your income streams are what feed you. They sustain you. They keep your family. They give you everything that you need for the element of community. And Yahweh says, when you go to the land that I'm going to give you, that job, Yahweh gave you. That business you started up, Yahweh gave you. Don't tell me, ooh, I was in prayer and God gave me a business idea. That's a part of your promised land. He gave you that. So when you get your first fruits from that, you give him the first sheaf offering, and then you dedicate a prescribed offering of a lamb, oil, wine, and grain, and that seals that income stream. And you are now telling Yahweh, I make you the Lord of my harvest. He will make sure that that income stream remains fully open and voluminous. This is what first fruits is about. But y'all have been hearing so much foolishness. We don't even know what to believe. I'm just giving it to you from the writ. That's what he wants from you. That's what he needs from you. So today, right now. I don't care how many business lines you have. I don't care if you got an ideal in your mind for a business and you're about to go down and put it with the registry of the state and get your business license. If you have a business license and that business is up and running and you are running in an operation, even if it's not even bringing the best, if it's not even leaking in anything, maybe you're in the red with it because you're in startup stage. You got to live 18 months with most businesses before they really start to bring you any kind of proceeds. That business, tell Yahweh, I'm trusting you with it. Here's my first fruit for my paparazzi business. Here's my first fruits for my Amazon business. Here's my first fruits for my Temu business. Here's my first fruits for my new coaching business. Here's my first fruits for the new ministry. Here's my, not new ministry, for my new counseling business. Whatever it may be, Yahweh is saying, whatever your income streams are, I want to be, in fact, in charge of that for you. Give it to me. Tell me it's mine by giving me the prescribed offering, waving that first sheaf, bring it to the priest, let them wave it for you so that it is accepted on your behalf to me, because I am the God of decency and order. That's the order. I want it done so I can start making things real decent for you. Somebody say, prune me, Yahweh. Come off mic, say, prune me, Yahweh. I'm saddened that we didn't get a whole lot more voices on that. I'm going to give y'all one more chance to try and make it right. Y'all got to remember, you live in a voice-activated kingdom. Somebody say, in this day of all days, say, Yahweh, I hear you, prune me, Yahweh. Why do you want him to prune you? Because if he takes that first fruits, he's going to cause you to bring forth much more fruit. Here's the problem. Any branch that has its first fruit come out of it doesn't want to see that fruit go nowhere. That's my fruit. Where you going with my fruit? I know my fruit. I just birthed that fruit. Yeah, I know. Relax. I got you covered. I need to get the port open. I needed to get the vein open. Now, trust me. Sit still for a minute. Let me cap this edge. Now watch what's coming in about 2, 3, 4 days. If you know anything about horticulture, you know anything about planting, you know anything about expanding bushes and moving trees and pruning trees and engrafting in trees like I do, you understand once that fruit gets cut off, guess what happens? When Yahweh takes the first fruit, who's the true vine, y'all? The Adonai, right? The word, right? So understand how it works when you take, as I've done, take fruit from the first part of that branch. A fresh branch, if it's going to give a bud, we snatch that bud off. Why do we do it? So that the vine of the tree pushes nutrients right there to that issue, because it's a trauma to the tree. The trauma to the tree, somebody say trauma hurt. Trauma hurt. Come on, y'all, talk to me. I got to get out of here. Say trauma hurts. So it causes a actual managed trauma to the tree so that the tree triggers more sap, more vine nutrient to that branch. It rushes it up there to heal it. Like you do with bleeding, you hemorrhage, you got to get that to clot up. That vine pushes that sap to clot it up, and then it expands that branch. Every time you take fruit off of that branch expands so it can have more, because there's stuff coming from the tree into that branch, expanding it from the inside so that it's thicker, stronger, and able to carry more fruit. And you are afraid to give to Yahweh what he's asked for because we need little straggly, scraggly twigs on the tree. And like, I get that little bit of fruit. That's all I got. He wants you to have so much more. And once he takes what you see externally, he starts to push into you internally. And before you realize it, you a big base branch and everybody in the world can eat off of you. And Yahweh wants to do that with you in theory for your business and everything else. This is why you must understand what Israel is about. Remember when Yahweh promised that when you in fact give me the first fruits, the promises I made in Deuteronomy 28, they come to fruition to your lives. You know the promises that says you'll be blessed when you come in, blessed when you go out. When your enemies see you one way, they'll go from you 7 different ways. Here's the one I really like to deal with. The promises from Devarim 28, when you first fruit to Yahweh in your business stream, however many you have, once you give him that first fruit, and by faith. Somebody say it's by faith. So by faith, When you do this by faith, watch what he does. He then causes the blessings to trigger to you. Here's the one I want to use as an example and leave you go with. The blessings of Yahweh come by the promise. Now, Israel and many of the Jews still do this first fruiting to this day. Many are already here. I'm in Florida. I got reports of the people down there in vacation homes, the Airbnbs. Many of the Jewish people own Airbnbs, but there's a community right now. We just went by the other day, and all the people from Soho and New York and Philly that own those Airbnbs, they've now gathered down here at these Jewish synagogues to make that. They've set residence here, and their first fruiting, their Pesaching, their Hag Matzasing, their Chag Bikkurim right now in their Airbnbs. They make money for them during the course of the year, but this is their vacation. This is where they take the vacation and they go to the synagogue and they give as they're supposed to. And now with the electronic giving at school, but here's the catch. They're doing it right now. How are they able to do this and have those types of vacations where their communities go to another area, enjoy beach, enjoy shore, enjoy air, enjoy sun, and still be able to honor Elohim because they can afford to do it while other people pay the rent for that space? This is important for you to understand, Mr. and Mrs. Christian, who thinks we know everything. They do this process and they are prospering because they give the first fruits. And guess what? Some of them don't even believe that Yeshua is the Messiah. So it's not predicated on whether you think Messiah lives or not. It's predicated on a human honoring his word. Here is the next part you need to understand about this. The Jewish people are, in fact, prospering from this, and we have the ability to do it as well. We thought it was only for them. That's why they're the only ones getting paid. Let me help you. You didn't realize that? There's a thing called the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a bank. Many people, because of the name Federal Reserve, think that it's the bank of America's government. Now, the problem with that is that the Federal Reserve is not the bank of America's government. It's the bank that lends to America's government. Because it's got Federal Reserve on it, that's where you thought it was. But the Federal Reserve, technically, at its core, long time ago, and still is to this day, it is a bunch of Israeli Jewish men that own that money, and they lend it to nations. Oh, is that a promise in Deuteronomy 28? You will be lenders to nations. Let me tell you what the Federal Reserve does with these Jewish board members who own the bank. It's not the Bank of America. They lend money to the American government. And they lend money to this nation called America. They lend money to the UK. They lend money to other monarchies. They loan money to any other nation that needs money. And in the nation lending realm, it is the premier that lends to nations. And they are, guess who?
The Jews.
Torah observant. Lending to nations as promised. You think that's a coincidence? Now, has it changed? People are like, well, he's talking crazy. Are there other people on there that are on the board who were based on education from Yale and Princeton and Harvard, which they founded and put together? All these different things, and UPenn and all that. Yeah, they are. And they're letting other people in because diversity in this nation has to happen. But who owns it? Who makes the money? Who lends the money? Who gets back the interest for that money? Not the United States government. The United States government pays interest to the Federal Reserve because they have money that they have to pay back. All because of their first fruiting. They're right now, check your neighborhoods. Your Jews are not working right now. And that's not an anti-Semitic statement. Jewish is not a bad thing. It's not a snide remark. It's just a fact. That's how you identify them. They are, in fact, not going to be at work tomorrow. They will not probably be at work all week because they actually budget for this. And how are they able to do this and leave their homes in Soho and go to a place somewhere in Central Florida and Miami and take over whole communities because their Airbnbs have nobody in them during this week except the actual owners. And they've moved their whole community down here to this community. They could afford to do it when they built it because they set themselves up for a commonwealth. First Fruits is the beginning of a commonwealth. This is not about your tithe. It affects your tithe. You want to be able to tithe, not tithe. You want to be able to prosper so that you can tithe. And yeah, I'm going to give my tithe because I believe in tithing. But this ain't about the tithe. This ain't the same giving. First Fruits and tithing are not the same. But First Fruits affects your tithing. But you were taught so much weird stuff inside of Christendom, none of it out of the writ. But because you read the New Testament by some weird Greek understanding interpretation, that you didn't go back to where the Bible actually gets its base from and read the instructions of Elohim himself. This is the prosperity plan of Elohim. You can't name it and claim it. You can't keep believing in this foolishness that if it don't meet the need, it's got to be a seed. Look, I did the same foolish thing early on in ministry. Preached it even. That's why I had to burn all the messages I taught, thousands of messages I taught once I converted to this Torah understanding. And I've preached all over the world in Christendom. I've preached on multiple of the mega ministries you see today. And I had to get rid of all those messages because none of them sat foundationally from the Torah. Name it and claim it. Come on, turn around 5 times and tell God bless me. Enlarge my territory. And if it don't meet the need, then it's got to be a seed. So sow it. All this foolishness we did. And Yahweh just said, give me the first fruits of your job. Give me the first fruits of your business. Give me the first fruits of your side job. The best part-time job you and I could ever have is keeping the feast. And you ain't got to put in all those hours. Matter of fact, this part-time job, you rest. And you put what you have in his hands. He goes, turns it around and brings it back through your income streams to favor your homes, your children, and gives you what you consider to be generational wealth. We're missing it because we won't listen to his word, and we're being churchy, and we've been told some foolish, weird doctrine, ideals, and theories, hoping they'll work. This ain't cryptocurrency. This is the kingdom economy. And they that come to the Father must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So today, my job is done here. You who are supposed to be in him, every branch in me that bears fruit, he gonna purge you. But the problem is it's trauma to be purged. When God comes at you with a knife, he gonna cut that fruit off you. You're like, what you doing, God? I thought you wanted me to do this. God, you blessed me with this fruit. No, God, don't take it. Don't take it, God. Don't take it, God. No, that's my fruit. Oh, what am I gonna do? I was counting on that fruit. He's like, yeah, you were supposed to give it to me so I can give you more. But you're afraid to give to him because I ain't got it. No, do not take it from your mortgage. Do not take it from your rent. Do not take it from your whatever. Don't go get a loan for it neither. Not a revolving credit loan anyway. Can you do it? Yeah, but you want to trust Elohim. Give him that first fruits offering for your income streams. I have several companies, and I have to write my check just like you got to write yours. Oh, you didn't think I gave mine as well? Oh, I give all the offerings, every single solitary one of them, and all that goes with them. The ones I'm afraid to read to y'all. So I got to first be partaker of this fruit before I can ever ask you or show you how to go along with it. When you find out through reading the writ, see, the people that are reading the writ, they come to me later and say, Apostle, is this supposed to be done? I'm like, yep. I know you're reading the writ because you had to look to find that. You mean we got to give a lamb for 7 days? Yeah, but you was only telling us that we bring a lamb on Pesach, Chag Bikkurim, and the other day 4 days. Yeah, that's good, because don't come before I'm empty. Wonderful. And if you're doing what you're supposed to do in that holy day, reading the writ the more, you'll start seeing the instructions better and be like, hey, apostle, does this mean, hey, does this look at it? Yeah. You mean we gotta, will he help? Yes, he will. Those people right there, we have conversations and you know where it comes from. I know where it comes from. But for those who just want to be in him and talk about you in the know and talk about I'm Sabbath keeper, talk about I keep the feast. I know who faking it. Because if you're really keeping the feast, our conversations would be different. Now, for the benefit of those who are listening to the programming and have been with us for some time, that is an indictment. So I have to do this, and I have to do it in its entirety before I can tell you to do it, even in your partiality, because it's new to you. So before you think I'm just telling you to do something I'm not doing, I have to do it too, and I got to do it upward to that which covers me. So today, as I wrote out my company's first fruits, make sure you write yours out. So tomorrow between 3 and 6 p.m., there will be a waiving of the first fruits offerings on your behalf and mine, according to the instructions of Leviticus chapter 23, verses 9 through 14. We do it by the book, not by the commentary. First fruits are not done in January. Yahweh does not honor the Gregorian calendar. Man made that. Yahweh honors the Torah calendar, which he made. Bring your first fruits on the days he sanctioned. Everything will be Gucci. Everything will be good, not Gucci. Everything will be good. That's what he wants you to do. So today, understand what your first fruits per your income stream is. Very simple, very clear. For you that do this, you can't just give your income. You can't give your first fruits to just anywhere. People say, well, I can give first fruits every day and any day I want to. No, you cannot. There's 2 times you do it. That's like trying to take this thing called communion every 4th Sunday or 3 times in a day because you're at a mass service. No. You can't do Pesach anytime you want. You can't do Hag Mikhat whenever you want. You can't do Chag Bikkurim whenever you want. You can't do Shavuot whenever you want. You have to do it on the days he's appointed. That's when he puts his super on your natural compliance. And next thing you know, before you realize it, all that you have need of starts to find favor, continuity, transparency, as well as tranquility and harmony in the world you live in. You can't just give this to the Salvation Army. You can't just give this to, some other nonprofit group. People will have you thinking, oh, well, you just give it to where you want to and just be charitable. No. There are prayers that go over this stuff. There is a process that Yahweh has begun. And either we're going to obey him or we're not. But please don't come back to me when you're struggling, talking about why I can't seem to get God bless me, because you never trusted him with his instructions. It's got to start somewhere. So many say, well, Apostle, I'm convicted. I get it, but I'm late starting this. No problem. Do your best right now. I mean, don't play with him. Do your best. Get yourself a seed. Push it towards that 450 per your income streams. And some of you can do it. Just go ahead and do it. I ain't want to pull it out of there, man. Do it. If you take that which he's asked for and he says he's going to give you much more, don't you think this little bit going to be double, triple? I'm sorry. He don't work in percentages. He works in folds. So if you give him what he wants, he returns it 30, 60, 100-fold. But you know why you don't get it? Because you don't give it to him. Oh, God bless me 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold. This ain't percentages. This ain't checkers. This is chess. This ain't percentages. This is supernatural multiplication. But you got to trust him. And my job is on this day to tell y'all that in this type of energy. I won't fuss with y'all about this. I ain't going to drag y'all down and do like they do in the offerings and say, oh, we need $15 more. God, we got to meet the budget. This is not for me. This is for you and your family. We're just the gatekeeper for the process and order he put into his instructions. We're going to waive it for you when you comply. And for some of you, it's your first time, your first year. So you're like, oh, I didn't know. Now you know. Get your best offering, prepare for next year. Get your best offering, put it together, and then get it to this day so you can be logged in and accounted for. And then tell Yahweh and make a vow. In 30 days, I'll have this paid off. I'll have this vow rendered to you rightly. I'm going to give you this. If it's 450, I'm going to give you this 150 right now. I'm going to give you this 200 right now. I'm going to give you this 300 right now. And I have the rest paid off in the next 30 days. I want to make sure I honor you. I don't want to be left out of this hour of your visitation. Tomorrow, I'll be back on teaching sometime in the afternoon. Again, we'll be doing this broadcast to waive the offering. So go to vwjministries.com right now. Get your seed in. Get it on this digital stuff so we can have your name digitally tracked, so we can literally tell you, because we don't send you any emails and all that stuff like that. We just want to make sure when we print out the contributors, we have your name and put your company name on your contribution. Some of you should be going in VWJ Ministries right now, typing in your 450 for your first fruits offering for each of your companies. Type the name of your company in that contribution so that we can have that way before the Father, so he can see that company you possess under his control by your request. And now he can take that first fruit you have and give you more fruit on top of it. He keeps that income stream open and full and in perpetuity. That's First Fruit's truest purpose. There's more. I'll talk to you. We got 5 more days of teachings. I'll be on every day. Hope you guys join in and tune in, and therefore we can learn from the writ what all of this actually means while we're in the season of his visitation. My name is Apostle V.W. Jones Sr., and I'm honored to be here. It is his word and his will that we declare and decree unto you, and may Yahweh's word reign in your ears, and may Ruach HaKodesh bring back all things to your remembrance of what his word has had to say. Join us as we prepare now. So take this time, go to vwjministries.com. Here are the many ways you can get your contribution in. We'll be praying over this on tomorrow. You don't want to miss that service. It'll be between 3 and 5. Please keep tabs on the VWJ Ministries or the VWJ on Facebook page for the time that's announced. Those of you on Clubhouse, we'll put it on Clubhouse as well, but make sure you get there to do it. I hope that you guys have learned something today. Did y'all learn anything today? Are you excited about your future? Because this ain't going to be something you feel right now. You're going to be like, man, this is trauma. I got to give what? And some of us have known this stuff for years and still won't prepare ourselves for the better. And you wonder why we're still in the same old spot. Doesn't have to be. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be like lavishly crazy, stupid, utterly pseudo rich. It means you're going to have a wealth in areas of your life that makes you solid, rock solid. You a solid person. Don't fall for drama. Can't get caught up in everything else. And everything that he has for you will be where it needs to be for you. And you have a life of peace, a life of shalom. Trust him if you can and if you will. Go to vwjministries.com right now. Get your first fruits offering in. It's very simple. It's very clean. There's a Cash App for you as well. You can go to Zelle. And if you want to zell it to vwj888@gmail.com. VWJ, like Volkswagen, VWJ Ministries, VWJ888@gmail. VWJ888@gmail. That will Zelle, goes right to the ministry, does not come to me. Y'all do know this stuff doesn't come to me. It goes to the ministry, and our ministry globally is globally reaching. We're reaching globally many souls for him. And when you sow in like that, according to his plan, you have that accounted to you for righteousness, every soul that comes to him because of these types of teachings. Do you guys think that we have something to offer the world in these teachings at DKN?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to see it expand to more people than just me, you, and the 4 other people here?
Yes, sir.
Help us share it and spread it to the rest of the world. Be a part of what Elohim is asking to have done. I love you guys at Life Eternal. I love you enough to tell you the truth. Even if it hurts me, doesn't matter. I've been to the heights of Christianity, the highest heights. I've been there. And I want it, and I lacked. I wanted more. I was lacking sustenance until I came into the truth of this word. Now I have fullness in life. And I don't have all the drama from church stuff, and not against the church, just the drama. Today is that day of transition for you. So this programming is not for the unsaved. This programming is for the saved. So therefore, all of us who are supposed to be in him need to begin to comply with him. Don't let the enemy keep you back because of all the other tricks and all the other ploys and scams and schemes that men and women of the cloth played on y'all. All of us have been damaged by much. But Yahweh has a plan to bring us out and heal us. Healing is in this time. And provisions for our future are tied in with it as well. Go to vwministries.com, get your seed in, your first fruits per income stream. Go do it now. $450 USD, whatever that translates to in the country you're in, make it happen. Let us pray. Yahweh, thank you for your word, will, purpose, and plan. We ask you to be with, in, through, and toward us for your name's sake and praise. You have given us everything, and we have not complied. So now we're making the effort to come towards you. We repent for not complying with you, not trusting you, not really taking time to study you, but we're doing it today. So as we've done, and I've done, given our first fruits, I'm going to go eat after this because I'm hungry. But Father, I'm putting my trust in you. All my companies that you have given me, I give you my first fruits. I trust you unequivocally. I trust you. It is, I am so stitched into trusting you. You have done wonders I can't explain, but I promise you, Yahweh, I will declare it when you give me the voice and the platform to share it. You alone have done these things, and I teach others the same so that your word can be propagated and carried throughout the world. Now we pray you, bless those who have a heart to do it. Father, I thank you, Yahweh. That one is, they're right there right now. They're saying, I want to do it, but I just can't. Father, give them the courage they need to trust you. I'm done. I know you have already done that, and may your word be able to impel them. This I pray in the mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach. We all say and we all pray. Amen. Well, Shabbat Shalom. We'll talk to you all soon. See you tomorrow between 3 and 7. Stay tuned to VWJ Ministries on Facebook for the announcement, and Clubhouse on the Rosh Kingdom.
Let's talk kingdom. He's the one you can lean on. He don't change, he stays the same. Won't find a better reason, no. So come tap in, just listen. And bring a friend, let's spread this vision. Let's talk kingdom. He's the one you can